There is a particular kind of memory that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or sentiment. It arrives in a supermarket checkout line or halfway through a quiet afternoon, triggered by something so small. The sound of a phone ringing in a certain way, or the smell of something you can't quite place. And suddenly you were somewhere else entirely. You are 7 years old again, or 12, or 19, standing in a kitchen, or a driveway, or a darkened car, and the world feels exactly the way it used to feel before everything changed. The things on this list are like that. None of them were remarkable when they existed. That was the whole point. They were ordinary, unremarkable, simply part of the daily texture of American life for anyone who grew up in the years between the late 1940s and the early 1970s. You didn't think about them any more than you thought about breathing. And then, one by one, quietly and without ceremony, they were gone. Here are 13 of them. Number 1. The party line. In 1950, 3 out of every 4 residential telephone customers on the Bell system, roughly 11 million American households, were on a party line. Not a private line. A party line. Meaning the telephone wire running into your home was shared with your neighbors. Sometimes 2 of them, sometimes 4, sometimes more. You picked up the receiver to make a call, and there was a chance, a very real chance, that someone down the street was already talking on it. You'd hear their voice mid-sentence, and you had the choice of quietly hanging up or listening. Every family had their own ring pattern. 2 short rings for the Hendersons, 1 long and 1 short for the Murphys. You learned your neighbors' patterns the way you learned their faces, and you were supposed to answer only when yours rang. Supposed to. The temptation to listen, to the neighborhood gossip, to the unfolding argument 3 houses away, to your teenager's conversation with someone she called just a friend, was one that not everyone resisted. Party lines spawned their own etiquette, their own social code, and their own arguments, some of which lasted years. Getting your own private line, when you could finally afford it, felt like a genuine achievement. The equivalent, someone once said, of being the first family on the block with a color television. Number 2, the milkman. He came before sunrise, 2 or 3 times a week, and he never knocked. Glass bottles on the porch, or through the milk chute in the wall, while the whole house slept. At the peak of the home delivery era, more than half the milk sold in America arrived this way, not from a store, but from a man who knew your order, read your notes, and adjusted his route without being asked. By the early 1970s, fewer than 1 in 10 families still had him. By 2005, less than half of 1%. He went the same way he came, quietly, before anyone was awake to notice. Number 3, S&H Green Stamps. At the peak of their popularity in the 1960s, S&H Green Stamps were collected by 80% of American households. 80%. The Sperry and Hutchinson Company was printing 3 times as many stamps as the United States Postal Service. You got them at the grocery store, the gas station, sometimes the drugstore, 1 stamp for every 10 cents you spent. And you took them home and licked them and pressed them into little green booklets, 24 pages each, 50 stamps to a page. Fill enough booklets and you could redeem them for a toaster, a lamp, a bicycle, a set of dishes. The catalog was thick as the Sears Wish Book, and the redemption centers looked like small department stores. There were gold bond stamps and top value stamps and blue chip stamps. But S&H Green Stamps were the ones everyone knew. They disappeared in the 1980s, superseded by coupons, and then loyalty cards, and then apps that do the same thing but feel like nothing at all. Number 4. The drive-in movie theater. In 1958, at the absolute peak of the drive-in era, there were more than 4,000 of them spread across the United States. 4,000. On summer nights across the country, families loaded into station wagons, kids in pajamas in the back, a bag of popcorn, a blanket, and drove to a field on the edge of town, where a screen the size of a building waited in the dark. You pulled up to the metal speaker post, hooked it over your window, and the tinny crackling sound of the movie filled your car. Teenagers treated them as the ultimate date night, cheap, reasonably private, and with the particular freedom of being out of the house after dark. Children fell asleep in the back seat somewhere during the second feature and were carried inside without waking up. That last part, many parents will tell you, was the entire point. Today, there are fewer than 300 drive-ins left. The screen is still the same size. The sky is still the same. Number 5. The TV dinner. In the fall of 1953, the Swanson Company had a problem. 260 tons of leftover Thanksgiving turkey sitting in refrigerated railroad cars with nowhere to go. A salesman named Jerry Thomas had recently seen the compartmentalized aluminum trays used by Pan American Airways for in-flight meals, and something clicked. They packaged the turkey with cornbread stuffing, sweet potatoes, and peas in a 3-compartment aluminum tray, slapped a picture of a television set on the box, and called it the TV dinner. In the first full year of production, 1954, Swanson sold 10 million of them. The following year, 25 million. At 98 cents each, you could have dinner with almost no effort and eat it in front of the television, which was exactly what America wanted to do. What the TV dinner changed was subtler than convenience. It quietly dismantled the family dinner table, one aluminum tray at a time. Number 6. The metal lunchbox. Aladdin Industries introduced the first character lunchbox in 1950. Hop-along Cassidy, tin, with a matching thermos, priced at $2.39. They sold 600,000 of them that year. Every year that followed brought new ones. Roy Rogers, Davy Crockett, astronauts, TV heroes. And taking the right lunchbox to school was a statement as serious as any fashion choice you'd make in the years to come. The boxes were heavy and virtually indestructible. They dented but did not break. Inside, a bologna sandwich, an apple, a cookie if you were lucky, and a thermos of milk that by lunchtime was neither cold nor warm, but somewhere in between and tasted exactly right. Plastic lunch boxes arrived in the 1970s. They were lighter and cheaper and nothing to show off about. Number 7. The rotary telephone. By the mid-1950s, 2/3 of American homes had a telephone, and nearly all of them were rotary. You placed your finger in the hole for each digit, turned the dial clockwise to the metal stop, released it, and waited while it returned to its position before you could dial the next number. A 7-digit number took the better part of half a minute. If you misdialed, if your finger slipped on the 6 and you accidentally dialed a 7, you had to hang up and start the whole sequence over. The telephone cord was long and tangled, coiled on itself over months of use. stretched across the kitchen while someone paced during an important call. The click and whir of a rotary dial was as familiar as any sound in the house, and you knew by feel alone, in the dark if necessary, exactly where each number sat. Number 8. The Iceman. By the 1950s, the Iceman was already disappearing. Electric refrigerators had been spreading through American homes since the 1930s. But in many households, particularly in older cities and towns, he hung on well into the decade. He came a few times a week with a large block of ice, carried it with iron tongs over a leather pad on his shoulder, and slid it into the top compartment of the icebox. Children followed the ice truck down the street in summer, picking up chips of ice that had fallen off the blocks, holding them in their hot hands until they melted. The icebox had to be drained regularly. There was a pan underneath that collected the meltwater, and forgetting to empty it was the kind of domestic failure that became a family story. The Iceman was gone by the early 1960s in most places, replaced by the hum of a compressor and a dial that said colder. Number 9. The passbook savings account. You went to the bank, your bank, the one on the corner that had been there since your parents were young, and the teller stamped your deposit directly into a small cloth-covered book with your name on the inside cover. Every deposit, every withdrawal, every interest payment, recorded by hand or by stamp in neat columns. You kept that book at home, often in a drawer or a box with other important papers, and you brought it with you every time you went to the bank. Children were given their first passbook accounts when they were very young, sometimes by a grandparent, and the act of watching the numbers grow, however slowly, was itself a kind of education. The passbook was retired in favor of paper statements, then electronic statements, then notifications on a phone. The bank on the corner is a chain now, or a coffee shop. Number 10. The soda fountain. Before there were fast food restaurants on every corner, there were soda fountains, usually inside the neighborhood drugstore, sometimes in a dedicated shop, where a counter and a few stools offered a specific and irreplaceable pleasure. The soda jerk, as he was called, mixed your drink to order. A Coca-Cola drawn from a tap and mixed on the spot with carbonated water. A milkshake blended in a steel cup, a phosphate, a float, a cherry Coke. These were not the same thing as what you got from a machine or a bottle. They were made right in front of you by someone who knew what they were doing. The soda fountain was at its peak in the 1940s and 1950s, then began its long fade as drugstore chains bought out the independents, and the lunch counter didn't fit the new floor plan. The last generation to take it for granted is the one watching this video. Number 11. The full-service gas station. You pulled in and did not get out of the car. An attendant came to your window, often a teenager in a uniform, and asked what you needed. He pumped the gas. He checked the oil without being asked. He washed the windshield with a squeegee and a bucket of water and handed you back the wiper in better condition than he found it. He might check your tire pressure. In some stations, there was free air and free maps hanging by the door. Self-service gas began appearing in the 1950s, but it wasn't until the oil crisis of the 1970s that full-service stations began to disappear in earnest, replaced by pumps you operated yourself. The attendant went with them. The windshield squeegee for a while, survived in a bucket by the pump. Then the bucket went too. Number 12. Saturday morning cartoons and the sign-on. Before cable television, before streaming, before anything on demand, Saturday morning was the one time children controlled what was on television, and they were up before their parents to claim it. But here's what people forget about those mornings. Television didn't run all night. Most stations went off the air sometime after midnight and began broadcasting again around 6 or 7 in the morning with a test pattern, a geometric design on a gray screen accompanied by a single steady tone that let you know the set was on, but the day hadn't started yet. Then came the programming, cartoons, westerns, adventure shows. You watched in your pajamas with a bowl of cereal, and the morning felt like it belonged entirely to you. Number 13, the TV station sign-off. And at the other end of the day, the thing almost nobody talks about anymore. Late at night, after the last program, after Johnny Carson or the late movie, the local television station would sign off for the night. An announcer's voice would come on, sometimes over a still image of a waving flag, and wish you a good night. Then came the national anthem, played in full, over a montage of eagles and mountains and amber waves of grain. Then static, or a test pattern, or simply a blank screen. The television set was done for the night. The day was genuinely over. There was nothing left to watch, no next episode, no algorithm offering you one more thing. The world signed off, and you were meant to go to sleep. And mostly, you did. 13 things. None of them were remarkable while they lasted. All of them left a mark. Do any of these bring back a memory? A specific one? A particular afternoon or morning or evening that belongs entirely to you and the time you grew up in? Tell us in the comments. We would love to hear it. And if this list reminded you of someone, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor who licked green stamps at the kitchen table, please send it to them, or to someone who would want to remember alongside you. We'll see you next time, right here on Memory Lane.